Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly get everything they want, while others keep chasing without any real results? What if the key to unlocking the life you desire isn't about luck or timing, but about who you choose to become? And here's the real question. Are you ready to discover the principles that can truly change your life forever? Let me ask you this. How many of you want more out of life? Of course, you do. That's why you're here, searching for answers. But here's something most people never realize. Everyone wants more, but few understand the fundamental truth about getting what you want. That truth is simple yet profound. For things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you must get better. Success isn't something you chase. It's something you attract by becoming the right kind of person. Let me emphasize that again because it's that powerful. Success is not something you pursue. Success is something you attract by the person you become. Unfortunately, most people have it backward. They spend their lives chasing success as if it's some elusive butterfly they might one day catch. But that's not how it works. Success is more like a shadow. You can't grab it directly, but if you transform yourself, it follows you wherever you go. Now, I want to share the fundamental principles for learning how to get whatever you want in life. And I'm not just talking about material things, although those will come, too. I'm talking about the complete package: meaningful relationships, vibrant health, financial prosperity, inner peace, and a legacy worth leaving behind. The very first principle is this: you must take full, uncompromising responsibility for your life. That means 100% ownership, no exceptions, no excuses, no blame. The day you graduate from childhood to adulthood is the day you stop blaming others and start taking charge of your own path. It's the moment you stop making excuses and begin making real progress. I meet people all the time who tell me all the reasons why they can't succeed. The economy is bad there. Some people blame their boss, their lack of education, or the neighborhood they grew up in. They believe these things hold them back. I hear it all the time. My boss doesn't like me, or I didn't have access to the right schools, or even, I was born on the wrong side of the tracks. But here's the truth I always share with them. Stop spending your life explaining why you don't have what you want. Start spending it building the life you truly want. Because at the end of the day, life doesn't care about your excuses. Success doesn't care where you came from. Achievement isn't interested in what happened to you last week or last year. What matters is what you do, today, tomorrow, and the days that follow. So instead of replaying that old story of why you can't, why not start asking yourself, how can I? That's where everything begins to shift. I remember something a mentor once told me that completely changed my perspective. He said, "Jim, don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. Don't wish for fewer problems. Wish for greater skills. Don't wish for less challenge. Wish for deeper wisdom." That simple shift in mindset moved the responsibility away from the world and placed it exactly where it belonged, squarely on my shoulders. Let me share a story that brings this to life. Years ago, I met a young man with every disadvantage imaginable. He was born into poverty. His formal education was limited. On paper, he had no real shot. By all societal standards, he was expected to stay stuck right where he started. But he refused to let his circumstances define him. Instead of blaming, he took ownership. He committed to learning. He worked tirelessly, not just at his job, but even more on improving himself. And today, that same young man is one of the most successful businessmen I've ever known. When I asked him about his secret, do you know what he told me? He looked me in the eye and said, "Mr. Rohn, I realized early that the marketplace only rewards one thing, value. So I made the decision to become valuable. I worked harder on myself than I ever did on my job." That kind of clarity from someone so young was remarkable. And it leads directly to the second principle for getting whatever you want in life. You must commit to ongoing personal development. This, my friends, is the real game changer. Because here's the hard truth. Most people are grinding away at their jobs, investing all their energy into work, but completely neglecting to invest in themselves. And that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. Why? Because your income will almost never grow beyond your personal development. Let me repeat that because it's worth millions, your income rarely exceeds your level of personal development. If you truly want to have more, you have to become more. Success isn't something you simply go out and grab. It's something that is magnetically drawn to you based on the person you're becoming. That's why I always encourage my audiences to build what I call a personal development program. Set aside time, every single day, to grow. Read for at least 30 minutes daily. Listen to powerful educational and motivational audio while driving. Go to seminars. Sign up for workshops. Seek out mentors who can challenge your thinking. Surround yourself with people who inspire you to stretch beyond your current limits. Let me turn the spotlight on you for a second. Ask yourself, how many books have you actually read in the last 90 days? How many seminars have you attended this year? What new skill have you added to your toolbox in the past 6 months? Your answers to these questions will say more about your future than any horoscope, prediction, or promise ever could. There's a well-known saying in the world of self-growth. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And the reason is simple. If you work hard on your job, sure, you'll make a living. But if you put that same intensity into working on yourself, you'll build a life. Your job might give you a paycheck, but your personal development, that gives you a fortune. I remember when I first stepped into this world of personal development. Back then, I was a struggling young man, working at Sears, barely scraping by. Life was a constant uphill battle. And then, one day, someone extended an invitation that would shift everything. They invited me to attend a seminar. I didn't know it then, but walking into that room was like stepping into a whole new version of my future. During that seminar, I heard a sentence that hit me like a lightning bolt. The speaker said, "If you want things to change, you've got to change. If you want things to get better, you've got to get better." That single sentence hit me like a ton of bricks. It was a wake-up call I didn't even know I needed. Up to that point, I had been quietly hoping that my circumstances would shift, that something out there in the world would change, without me having to change myself. I was waiting for my paycheck to grow while I stayed exactly the same. But life doesn't operate that way. Life only responds to one thing, your personal growth. Not your background, not your intentions, but your actual level of development. The moment I realized that, I made a commitment. I dove into books. I listened to tapes. Yes, cassette tapes. That's what we had back then. I attended every seminar I could scrape together enough money for. I sought out mentors who had walked the path I wanted to follow. And guess what? My life started to change. It didn't happen instantly. There's no such thing as true overnight success. But slowly and steadily, step by step, day by day, my life began to transform. And that brings us to the third principle for getting whatever you want. You must set specific, measurable, and time-bound goals. You'd be amazed by how many people I meet who have dreams, but not goals. They tell me, "I want to be happy," or "I want to be successful," or "I want to be rich." But those aren't goals. Those are vague wishes, hopes without structure, intentions without a plan. A real goal has definition. It has a deadline. And most importantly, it has a clear plan of execution. Let me give you an example. Don't just say, "I want to be financially secure." Say, "I want to have $50,000 in my savings account by December 31st of next year." See the difference? One floats in the clouds, while the other stands on solid ground. I've learned over the years that most people overestimate what they can accomplish in a single year and underestimate what they can accomplish in 5. Why is that? Because they don't yet understand the unstoppable power of consistent, daily action toward a clearly defined goal. So here's what I recommend. Write your goals down. There's something almost magical about transferring your dreams onto paper. It's as if, by writing them, you declare to the universe, "This is what I intend to do." Then, break those goals into smaller, actionable steps. Big goals can feel overwhelming, even intimidating. But when you divide them into daily or weekly actions, they become not just possible, but practical. And here's a crucial tip. Review your goals every single day. Keep them in front of you. Don't just write them once and forget them. Make them part of your everyday thinking, because what you focus on expands. What you think about, you begin to bring about. I remember working with a couple who said they wanted to buy their dream home. It sounded exciting, until I asked them to describe that dream home in detail. And you know what? They couldn't. They had a vague image in their minds, but nothing concrete. No specifics. No clarity. So I challenged them. I told them to go beyond vague ideas and start getting specific. So they began driving through neighborhoods that truly appealed to them, paying close attention to what resonated with their vision. Within just 6 months, they didn't just find their dream home. They placed a down payment on it. Why did this happen so quickly? Because they shifted from a floating wish to a well-defined, actionable goal. They had clarity. And when you know exactly what you want, every decision, every step becomes more aligned and more powerful. Now let's move into the fourth principle for getting whatever you want: understanding the power of your philosophy. I know, it might sound abstract at first, but stay with me, because this concept is absolutely vital. Your philosophy is your personal lens on life. It's the way you interpret the world around you, the mindset that governs your choices, your beliefs, and ultimately, your outcomes. Let me break it down with a simple example. Imagine two people who are both laid off from the same company. One person views it as a catastrophe, a sign of failure, a reason to give up or blame others. The other person sees it as a fresh start, a chance to pivot, a push towards something more meaningful. Same event, same job loss, yet two completely different interpretations. Why? Because they operate from different philosophies. And those philosophies shape not only how they see the world, but how they respond to it, and the results they get. Here's the exciting part. Your philosophy is not fixed. It's not something you're born with or stuck with. You get to choose it. You get to decide how you interpret life circumstances and your role in shaping them. So why not choose a philosophy that lifts you up instead of one that holds you back? Choose one that empowers you to grow, to learn, and to move forward, no matter the obstacle. I've always believed that life doesn't give us what we want or even what we need. It gives us what we deserve. And what we deserve is directly tied to the value we bring to the world, value created through who we become. So, if you want more, you've got to become more valuable. If you want better outcomes, you have to become a better version of yourself. Growth and reward go hand in hand. Which brings me to the fifth principle. You must understand and master the law of sowing and reaping. Some people refer to it as karma. Others call it cause and effect. No matter what label you use, you call it, the truth remains the same. It's one of the most powerful laws in the universe. You reap what you sow, you get what you give. You receive in direct proportion to what you contribute. Yet here's where most people go wrong. They want to reap first and maybe sow later, if at all. They crave the harvest before they've even planted a single seed. They dream of rewards without ever creating the value that earns them. But that's not how life works. The natural order is simple and unshakable. You must plant before you harvest. You must give before you can get. You must contribute before you ever collect. The soil of life only produces results after consistent effort has been invested in it. That's why I always say, if you want more money, don't chase money. Instead, focus on becoming more valuable. Because money doesn't respond to need, it responds to value. And value attracts money like a magnet. It's the same with relationships. If you want deeper, more meaningful connections, don't start by demanding more from others. Start by becoming a better version of yourself. Because the quality of your relationships will always mirror the quality of the person you bring into them. It may sound obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people completely miss this truth. They spend their lives asking, what can I get? Instead of what can I give? They're obsessed with what they're owed instead of what they can offer. They focus on their rights, rarely considering their responsibilities. And while they're busy waiting for the world to hand them something, the world keeps moving, rewarding those who flip the script. The truly great ones, those who rise to extraordinary levels of success, they do something different. They begin with service. They focus on giving more, not getting more. They ask questions like, how can I create more value? How can I serve more people? How can I make a greater contribution to the lives of others? And because of that mindset, they often end up receiving far more than they ever imagined possible. Not because they chased the reward, but because they became the kind of person who deserved it. I remember one business owner who attended one of my seminars. His business was struggling, his revenue was stagnant, and he was desperate for a breakthrough. When I suggested he shift his focus toward adding more value to his customers, he looked skeptical. I don't have time for that, he told me. Right now I need sales now. But something in our conversation stayed with him. So despite his doubts, he decided to give it a try. He began with a simple step. He asked his customers what they actually needed. What challenges were they facing that his company hadn't yet solved? He listened closely to their feedback. Based on their responses, he created new services, upgraded the existing ones, and trained his team to deliver a level of customer care that exceeded expectations. The result? Within 6 months, his sales had doubled. And within a year, they had tripled. Not because he chased numbers or pushed harder for sales, but because he focused on creating value. The sales came naturally, almost effortlessly, as a byproduct of service, not as the goal itself. That brings us to the sixth principle of getting whatever you want. You must master the art of effective time management. Time is the great equalizer. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, the same 168 hours in a week. What separates high performers from everyone else isn't more time. It's how they use it. I always remind people, time is far more valuable than money. You can lose money and earn it back. But once you lose time, it's gone, irretrievable, irreversible. That's why successful people don't just spend time, they invest it. They treat time like capital, something that must yield a return. They don't waste it, and they certainly don't kill it. Instead, they make time work for them. So what can you do to start managing your time like the top 1%? Start by becoming aware of where your time actually goes. Keep a time log for 1 week. Track your day in 30-minute increments. You'll probably be shocked at how much time is lost to low-value activities that don't move you forward. Next, get crystal clear on your priorities. What are the high-value activities that truly advance your goals? Which tasks actually contribute to your progress? And just as importantly, what are the distractions, the things that keep you busy but bring no real return? Now here's a mindset shift that can change everything. Don't prioritize your schedule, schedule your priorities. In other words, don't just react to what shows up on your calendar. Instead, proactively block time for what matters most. When you do that, you take control of your time, and in turn, you begin to take control of your life. Most people look at their calendar and ask, what can I fit in? But the most successful individuals flip that approach entirely. They begin with what truly matters, their top priorities, and they build their calendars around those. Their days aren't filled with random to-dos. They're designed with intention and purpose. One of the best tools I always recommend is the 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle, when it comes to time management. The idea is simple but powerful. 80% of your results typically come from just 20% of your activities. Your job is to identify that high-impact 20% and direct your time, energy, and focus there. As for the remaining 80%, eliminate it, delegate it, or streamline it. Don't let it consume your bandwidth. I once worked with a woman who was putting in 70-hour work weeks, yet she still wasn't hitting her goals. She was exhausted, stressed, and starting to lose confidence. When we did a time audit, the truth became obvious. Over 30 of those hours each week were being spent on low-impact tasks that had almost no connection to her core objectives. By removing, delegating, and automating much of that busy work, she was able to reduce her workweek to 50 hours, and more importantly, she doubled her productivity. That's the real essence of time management. It's not about cramming more into your day. It's about doing fewer things, better. It's about focusing on what truly moves the needle, the high-leverage activities that bring the biggest return on your investment of time. Because when you focus on the right things, everything else begins to fall into place. And now we arrive at the 7th principle for getting whatever you want in life. You must master your emotions. Emotions are powerful forces. They can be your greatest allies, driving you toward action, creativity, and connection. Or they can be your most dangerous saboteurs, leading you down paths of fear, doubt, or impulsive decisions. Here's the problem. Most people live at the mercy of their emotions. They don't control their emotional states. They react to them. Instead of acting based on their values, intentions, or long-term goals, they respond based on whatever they feel in the moment. And that's a dangerous way to live. But the truly successful? They've learned to do something different. They manage their emotional state. They know how to generate the emotions that serve their purpose, and how to shift or release the emotions that don't. Take fear, for example. Everyone feels it. Fear is universal. But the difference is that the successful don't let fear dictate their actions. They acknowledge the fear. They feel it fully, but they move forward anyway. They make the call. They step on the stage. They have the hard conversation. Why? Because their commitment is stronger than their fear. They make the call. They step on the stage. They take that leap of faith, not because they're fearless, but because their mission matters more than their fear. That's the real definition of courage. It's not the absence of fear. It's the decision to keep going despite it. And let's talk about motivation. Here's a major misconception. Most people wait to feel motivated before they act. But the successful know that motivation doesn't always come first. In fact, they flip the script. They take action first, and then the motivation kicks in. They understand that action often breeds motivation, not the other way around. This is why I often emphasize the importance of rituals when it comes to managing emotional states. Want to feel more confident? Try this. Stand tall, breathe deeply, and speak with strength. Your body sends powerful cues to your brain. Want to feel more gratitude? Begin each morning by writing down 5 things you're thankful for. It might seem simple, but it rewires your mindset in powerful ways. Want more energy? Then nourish your body. Exercise regularly, eat clean, and get quality sleep. Because your emotions are deeply tied to your physiology, your focus, and your language. Shift these 3, and you'll notice a shift in how you feel. And when you change how you feel, everything changes: your decisions, your actions, your outcomes. I once worked with a talented writer who struggled with chronic procrastination. Every time she sat down to write, she'd feel overwhelmed. Instead of starting, she'd drift into checking emails or scrolling through social media. Sound familiar? So together, we created a pre-writing ritual. 5 minutes of deep meditation, a curated playlist that inspired her, a clean and uncluttered workspace, and a clearly defined writing goal for each session. This simple ritual became her emotional reset. It helped her transition from feeling scattered to feeling focused, from anxious to creative. And within just 6 months, she finished the book she had been stuck on for years. That's the power of learning to manage your emotional state with intention. Now let's move into the 8th principle for getting whatever you want in life: the power of association. This one is big. There's a phrase I often share: show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Why? Because the people you consistently spend time with influence everything: your mindset, your habits, your beliefs, your decisions, and ultimately, your destiny. You've probably heard this before. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So take a moment and really think about that. Who are your 5? Are they lifting you higher or subtly dragging you down? Are they challenging you to grow, to reach further, or are they making it easy for you to settle and stay comfortable? Are they expanding your vision or reinforcing your limitations? That's why I recommend doing what I call an association audit. Write down the names of the people you spend the most time with and evaluate their impact. Are they a positive influence or a negative one? Do they support you or constantly criticize? Are they growth-minded and successful, or are they stuck in struggle and excuses? Are they action-oriented and inspiring, or passive and draining? Talk. Based on this audit, you'll likely need to make some honest decisions. It might mean spending less time with certain individuals and more time with others who uplift you. You may need to actively seek out new associations, mentors, peers, or entire communities who will challenge you, stretch your thinking, and support your personal and professional growth. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying you should walk away from family members or longtime friends just because they're going through hard times. Compassion matters. Loyalty matters. But what I am saying is this: be intentional, deliberate, about who you allow to shape your mindset, influence your standards, and occupy space in your inner circle. Surround yourself with people who see greatness in you, who push you to rise higher, who reflect the kind of success you're striving toward. Because energy is contagious, so is mindset. And the environment you place yourself in will either fuel your ambition or slowly drain it. I remember coaching a young entrepreneur who was having a hard time scaling his business. He had drive, talent, and a solid product, but growth was stagnant. When I examined his circle, the issue became clear. None of his close friends were entrepreneurs. They were all employees. Well-meaning, but locked into an employee mindset. Their conversations centered around job security, not risk-taking. Stability, not scalability. So I challenged him: join an entrepreneurial group. Seek out a mentor who had already built what he was trying to build. Start showing up in rooms where entrepreneurial thinking was the norm, not the exception. And he did. Within 12 months, his business revenue increased by 300%. What changed? It wasn't his product or his work ethic. It was his environment. He was finally surrounded by people who thought differently. People who saw possibilities where others saw problems. People who understood his challenges and could offer real guidance from their own experience. And now, let's move into the 9th principle for getting whatever you want: the power of your words. Words aren't just sound vibrations. They carry enormous influence. Words can build or break. They can uplift or destroy. They can spark healing or inflict deep wounds. Whether spoken to others or whispered to yourself, your words matter more than you might think. Unfortunately, most people speak without thinking. Their language is careless, automatic, often filled with limiting beliefs or self-sabotaging patterns. But high performers, the successful, are far more intentional. They understand that words don't just describe reality, they shape it. Your language forms your perception, and your perception drives your behavior. Reality. So take a moment. Really listen to how you speak to yourself and about yourself. Are your words empowering, or are they quietly tearing you down? Do you find yourself saying things like, "I can't afford that," or "That's not possible for someone like me," or "I'm just not good at that"? Statements like these might seem harmless, but they're not. They become internal scripts, self-fulfilling prophecies that shape your behavior, limit your perspective, and quietly reinforce the very barriers you're trying to overcome. These aren't just words. They're instructions your subconscious takes seriously. Instead, what if you flipped the script? What if you started asking better questions? Try saying, "How can I afford it?" Or "How can I make this happen?" Or "What would it take to become good at this?" These questions don't shut the door, they open it. They activate your creativity. They prompt your mind to explore, problem solve, and seek solutions, rather than simply accept defeat. And it's not just how you speak to yourself. Pay close attention to how you speak about others, and how you speak to others. Your words have the power to inspire or to deflate, to motivate or to discourage. Choose to be someone who elevates others, who speaks life into the dreams and potential of the people around you. I remember working with a team leader who was frustrated, disappointed with his team's lack of performance. His language reflected it. "They're lazy," he'd say. "They don't care. They're not capable." But when I listened closely, it wasn't just what he was saying, it was how he was saying it. His words were filled with frustration and judgment. No wonder the team was underperforming. They were responding to the environment he unknowingly created. I encouraged him to change his language. Instead of focusing on what was wrong, focus on what's possible. Instead of criticizing, offer clear guidance. Instead of assuming the worst, start believing the best. He was doubtful, but he gave it a shot. Within 3 months, the transformation was visible. The same team, same people, but dramatically different results. Why? Because the leader's words changed. And those words reshaped the culture, the expectations, and the belief that improvement was possible. Now, let's move into the 10th principle for getting whatever you want. The power of continuous learning. In a world that's evolving faster than ever, what you know today could be irrelevant tomorrow. Skills become outdated. Technology shifts. Industries transform. The only true, long-term competitive advantage isn't what you know. It's how fast you can learn. Your competition. The most successful individuals I've worked with all share one powerful trait. They are voracious learners. They consume knowledge the way others consume entertainment. They read constantly, listen to insightful podcasts, attend workshops and seminars, and actively seek out mentors. Their minds are open and curious. They're always asking questions, testing new ideas, and pushing the boundaries of what they think they know. They're not ashamed to say, "I don't know," because they immediately follow it with, "But I'll find out." That mindset is what keeps them ahead. That hunger for growth is what gives them the edge. I often recommend something I call the 5-hour rule. It's simple. Dedicate at least 5 hours per week to deliberate learning. That could mean reading, reflecting, journaling, experimenting, or studying a new skill. This isn't the kind of passive learning we do while scrolling on our phones or watching endless videos. This is active, intentional, goal-driven learning, focused on acquiring knowledge that will move you toward the life you want to create. And here's a powerful tip: learn across disciplines. Don't just stay confined to your specific industry or niche. Expand your thinking. Study psychology to better understand behavior. Dive into history to gain broader perspective. Explore philosophy to sharpen your thinking. Look into art to cultivate creativity. Because often, the most groundbreaking ideas come from merging insights across different fields, connections that others aren't seeing. I once worked with a financial advisor who was stuck in a highly competitive market. While everyone else was focusing strictly on numbers and returns, he took a different approach. He began studying how Disney crafts world-class customer experiences. Then, he applied those same principles to his financial practice. He created an environment where clients didn't just receive investment advice. They felt special, seen, and genuinely cared for. The results? His client base exploded. Over the next 3 years, his business quadrupled. Why? Because he wasn't just managing money. He was creating an unforgettable experience. All because he was willing to learn beyond his field and apply new ideas in creative ways. Now, let's move into the 11th principle for getting whatever you want. Understanding the power of discipline. Discipline is what connects a dream to its realization. It's the bridge that turns vision into action and action into results. It's doing what needs to be done, even on the days you don't feel like doing it. Here's where most people fall short. They let their feelings lead. If they feel motivated, they act. If they don't, they wait. But the successful? They operate from a different place. They act based on commitment, not emotion. They follow through not because it's always easy or exciting, but because they said they would. And that kind of consistency builds unstoppable momentum. Discipline doesn't mean perfection. It's not about never slipping. It's about developing the inner strength to get back up each time you fall. It's not about doing amazing things once in a while. It's about doing ordinary things consistently and well. I often tell people that success isn't complicated. It's usually the result of just a few simple disciplines, repeated day in and day out. On the other hand, failure isn't dramatic. It's usually just the accumulation of a few small errors in judgment, made consistently over time. Judgment, repeated every day. That's what leads to failure, not massive mistakes, but tiny ones, compounded over time. Conversely, it's the compound effect of daily discipline that creates extraordinary results. It's the little things done consistently, not perfectly, that move the needle. Let's take your health as an example. It's not the one intense workout you do once a month that changes your life. It's the daily commitment to move your body. It's not the occasional salad that transforms your well-being. It's your consistent, everyday choices when no one's watching. Success in any area is built on repetition of high-value behaviors, not one-time effort. I remember coaching a woman who had dreamed of writing a book for years. She talked about it often, had notes and ideas scattered everywhere, but never seemed to make meaningful progress. So I asked her one simple question: "What's your writing routine?" She paused, then admitted she didn't have one. She said she wrote only when she felt inspired. And as you might guess, that wasn't very often. So I gave her a challenge. Commit to just 30 minutes of writing every morning. No matter how she felt. No matter what the words looked like. No excuses. No exceptions. The rule was simple. Write for 30 minutes. Even if the writing felt bad. Even if she had nothing to say. And she did it. Day by day, page by page, she built momentum. And within a year, she had completed the manuscript she had been dreaming about for over a decade. Not because she had stumbled upon some sudden burst of inspiration, but because she had built the discipline of showing up daily. That's the power of consistent action. 30 minutes a day, over time, turned a dream into a finished book. The same principle applies to any goal you have: fitness, finance, relationships, business. Small, focused effort, done daily, stacks into something massive. Now, let's move into the 12th principle for getting whatever you want: the power of resilience. The journey to success is rarely smooth. In fact, it's usually filled with unexpected turns, failures, delays, disappointments, and setbacks. But here's the key. What separates those who reach their dreams from those who give up isn't whether or not they encounter obstacles. It's how they respond to them. Resilience is your ability to bounce back after a loss, to adapt when circumstances change, to stay standing when life tries to knock you flat. It's not about never falling. It's about always getting back up. One more time. Every time. I've spent years studying high performers, entrepreneurs, athletes, and leaders. Decades, and across all industries, one trait continues to stand out: how the most successful people respond to failure. They don't treat failure as the end of the road. They don't take it personally or see it as a reflection of their self-worth. Instead, they view failure as feedback, as data, as useful information to help them make better decisions next time. Thomas Edison, when asked about the thousands of unsuccessful attempts before inventing the light bulb, responded with timeless wisdom: "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's the mindset of true resilience. It's not about denying the struggle. It's about seeing the struggle as a stepping stone, not a stop sign. When setbacks happen, and they will, I often recommend using something I call the 48-hour rule. When something painful, disappointing, or frustrating occurs, allow yourself 48 hours to fully feel it. Sit with the emotion. Process it. Don't suppress it. But once those 48 hours are up, it's time to move forward. Ask better questions. Ask, what can I learn from this? How can I grow? What's my next move? Because that's what transforms setbacks into stepping stones. I once coached an entrepreneur whose first business failed spectacularly. He lost his life savings, his home, and for a while, even his self-confidence. For several weeks, he was in a dark place, devastated and directionless. But then, slowly, he began to shift his focus. He asked, what did this teach me? What would I do differently next time? What inner strength did I discover through this pain? and he acted on those insights. Within 2 years, he had launched a new business, one that grew 10 times bigger than his first. The failure, as crushing as it felt in the moment, became a powerful foundation for his eventual success. Not because he avoided it, but because he faced it, learned from it, and moved forward with greater clarity and resilience. That brings us to the 13th principle for getting whatever you want, the power of integrity. Because let's be honest, success without integrity is just another form of failure. Achievement without character? That's an empty victory. What good is gaining the whole world if you have to lose your soul in the process? Integrity is about being whole. It's about being undivided in who you are and how you live. It means your words align with your actions. It means what you say in public matches what you do in private. There's no double life, no deception, no pretending. Aligns with your public image. It means doing what you said you'd do, even when it's inconvenient. It means you keep your promises, honor your commitments, tell the truth, and take full responsibility for your actions. In today's fast-paced, shortcut-driven world, integrity can seem almost outdated. We see examples everywhere. People cutting corners, breaking promises, bending the rules. And often, they seem to get ahead in the short term. But real, lasting success, the kind that not only builds achievement, but also creates inner peace and respect, can only be built on a foundation of integrity. I always remind people, your reputation is one of your most valuable assets. It can take years, sometimes decades, to build, but just a few careless seconds to destroy. Protect it fiercely, guard it intentionally, value your word as if it were gold. Because in the end, your word is your bond. Your handshake should be as binding as a legal contract. And your commitment? That's not just what you say, it's who you are. It reflects your character, especially when no one is watching. I remember consulting with a company that was facing an incredibly tight deadline for a high-stakes client project. The team discovered a shortcut that would have saved them time and money, and truth be told, it was so subtle that the client likely would have never noticed. On paper, it made sense. But the CEO didn't hesitate. He said, "That's not how we do business. We promised a standard, and we're going to deliver that standard, no exceptions." They ended up missing the deadline by 2 days. They had to call the client, own the delay, and have what could have been a difficult conversation. But here's what happened. They delivered a final product that met their internal standards without compromise. The client, instead of walking away, appreciated the honesty and the commitment to quality. That client later became their biggest advocate, referring millions of dollars in business their way over the years. Why? Because trust is rare, and they had proven they were trustworthy. And trust, once earned, opens more doors than any sales pitch ever could. Now we arrive at the 14th principle for getting whatever you want, the power of contribution. Here's something I've observed across decades of coaching and consulting. The most successful people I've ever met don't define success by just what they've acquired or achieved. They define success by what they've given, by the difference they've made, by the lives they've touched, by the legacy they know they'll leave behind. There's a deep, universal human desire to know that your life matters, not just to you, but to something bigger, that you've contributed, that in some way, you made the world better because you were here. Difference. And here's the powerful truth. When this need to contribute is met, we experience a kind of fulfillment that no personal achievement or material success alone can ever provide. It touches something deeper within us. It satisfies a longing to know that our presence on this earth truly mattered. That's why I encourage people to regularly ask themselves, how am I contributing? How am I adding value today? What am I doing to make things better for someone else? These questions are subtle, but they shift your focus in a profound way. From getting to giving, from consuming to creating, from asking, what's in it for me, to how can I be of service? And here's the beautiful paradox. When you live from a place of contribution, when you truly aim to add value to others, what you want often comes to you more easily, almost effortlessly. It's as if the universe recognizes genuine service and responds with unexpected abundance. I remember working with a salesperson who was frustrated. He was struggling to meet his monthly targets and felt like he was constantly pushing uphill. His entire focus was on closing deals, hitting numbers, and making commissions. So I suggested a simple but powerful shift. Stop focusing on the sale and start focusing on the person. Instead of asking, how can I close this deal? I told him to ask, how can I help this person solve a problem? Or how can I help them achieve their goal? In other words, shift from selling to serving. And he did. Within 6 months, his sales had doubled. Why? Because people could sense the change. They could feel that he genuinely cared about helping them, not just about padding his paycheck. As a result, they trusted him. They returned to him. They referred others. He built relationships, not just transactions, and that created loyal, long-term clients. Now we arrive at the 15th principle for getting whatever you want: understanding the power of your choices. Every single day, you are making choices. Choices about what you focus on, what you believe, how you interpret the things that happen around you, and how you respond. You choose your actions, your words, your tone, and your direction. And while these daily choices might seem small, almost invisible in the moment, they're not. They accumulate, they stack, and over time, they shape the course of your life. As the legendary Jim Rohn once said, "Our lives are the sum total of the choices we have made." Most people think life is shaped by big, dramatic moments. But more often than not, people make choices unconsciously, habitually, almost on autopilot. They react rather than respond. They recycle yesterday's thinking, yesterday's decisions, and yesterday's patterns, without pausing to ask whether those choices still serve them. And over time, that automatic behavior becomes their reality. But those who are truly successful, they don't drift, they decide. They are intentional about their choices. They understand that between a stimulus and their response, there is a small but powerful space. And in that space lies the freedom to choose. And in that choice lies the opportunity for growth, alignment, and real happiness. That's why I often teach people to practice something I call choice awareness. Throughout your day, pause and ask yourself, what am I choosing right now? Is this choice consistent with who I want to become? Is it aligned with my values, my priorities, and my long-term goals? Because every moment is a fork in the road. One path leads you toward the life you want, and the other quietly pulls you away from it. I once coached a woman who constantly felt overwhelmed and emotionally drained. She had so many obligations, and it seemed like stress followed her everywhere. When we took a closer look, we realized the issue wasn't her workload, it was her choices. She was saying yes to almost everything. She felt obligated to help everyone around her, even when it meant abandoning her own well-being and neglecting what mattered most to her. So we created a simple decision-making filter, a pause point. Before agreeing to any request, she'd ask herself 3 key questions. 1. Is this aligned with my values and long-term goals? 2. Do I genuinely want to do this, or am I just trying to please someone? 3. If I say yes to this, what will I have to say no to? That one shift, those 3 questions, transformed her life. Her stress began to ease. Her time opened up. She created space for what truly mattered and let go of the guilt that came from always trying to do everything for everyone else. Now, we come to the 16th principle for getting whatever you want: the power of persistence. Here's the truth that often gets buried beneath highlight reels and viral headlines. Nothing truly worthwhile is ever achieved without persistence. Behind every overnight success is usually a story of years, sometimes decades, of consistent, relentless effort that no one ever saw. Persistence isn't glamorous. It's not flashy, but it's the unshakable commitment to keep going. Even when the path is slow, the progress is invisible, and the odds seem stacked against you. It's choosing to act even when motivation fades and results don't come right away. Difficulty, opposition, or discouragement. It's moving forward when everything inside you wants to give up. It's staying committed when progress is slow, when motivation fades, and when the outcomes you hoped for haven't arrived yet. Most people make a critical mistake. They overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year, but underestimate what they could accomplish in 10. Because we live in a world addicted to instant gratification, we expect big results, fast. And when those results don't show up right away, too many people simply walk away. But the ones who succeed? They understand that greatness takes time. They're willing to push through the plateaus, to keep going even when it feels like nothing is working. They persist through the setbacks, through the uncertainty, through the silence that separates effort from reward. I often remind people of the story of the bamboo tree. When you plant a bamboo seed, something strange happens. Nothing. Not for a week. Not for a month. Not even a year. For 4 years, there's no visible growth. No sprout. No signs of progress above the ground. But beneath the surface, something powerful is happening. The bamboo is building an extensive root system, developing the strength and foundation to support rapid growth when the time is right. Then, in the 5th year, something remarkable happens. The bamboo shoots up 90 feet in just 6 weeks. So was it really 6 weeks of growth? Or 5 years of unseen preparation? The answer, of course, is 5 years. Without that deep, invisible groundwork, the towering growth would never have been possible. I worked with an author who experienced a similar lesson. His first book was rejected by 27 publishers. Most people would have stopped after 5 or 10. Some would have thrown in the towel at 20. But he didn't. He kept going. And on his 28th attempt, a publisher finally said yes. That book went on to sell over 1 million copies and launched his career as a best-selling author. But none of that would have happened if he had quit just one rejection too soon. Persistence is what made the breakthrough possible. And now, we transition into the 17th principle for getting whatever you want: the power of gratitude. Gratitude isn't just a feel-good emotion, it's a gateway to abundance. When you're truly grateful for what you already have, you begin to attract more of what you want. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's lacking to what's present, from scarcity to sufficiency, from anxiety to appreciation. But here's the mistake many people make. They think, I'll be grateful when I succeed. I'll be grateful when I have more. I'll feel thankful after I get what I want, achieve my goals. Or, I'll be grateful when I have everything I want. Or, I'll feel thankful when life finally looks the way I imagined it. But that's not how gratitude works. Gratitude isn't the result of success, it's the foundation for it. Gratitude isn't something that comes after everything falls into place. It's what helps everything fall into place. It shifts your energy. It elevates your mindset. And when you operate from a place of appreciation, you start to attract more of what's worth appreciating. I often recommend a simple yet powerful daily practice. Each morning, or at the end of your day, write down 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be grand or life-changing. In fact, some of the most meaningful gratitude comes from the smallest things. Maybe it's your health, your family, your ability to breathe deeply. Or maybe it's something as simple as a hot cup of coffee, a warm smile from a stranger, or a breathtaking sunset. It's not the size of the thing that matters. It's the sincerity behind it. The act of noticing and appreciating, even the seemingly mundane, has a way of anchoring you in what's right rather than what's missing. This shift in focus does more than just feel good. It changes your entire emotional frequency. It affects your attitude, your actions, and ultimately, your results. I remember working with a business owner who was constantly stressed about money. Ironically, his business was actually doing quite well, but he couldn't see it because he was always laser-focused on the gap between where he was and where he wanted to be. He obsessed over the numbers he hadn't hit, the milestones still out of reach. That mental focus created a mindset of scarcity and frustration, which started to negatively impact his decision-making, his communication with clients, and even how he showed up for his team. So I gave him a challenge. Begin each morning by reviewing your financials, not with worry, but with gratitude. Instead of saying, "We're not there yet," start with, "Look how far we've come." Instead of fixating on what's missing, recognize the clients who trust you, the income already earned, and the impact your business is having. The result? Everything changed. His energy lifted. His creativity came back. He became more confident, more inspiring to his staff, and more present with his clients. And within a year, his revenue increased by 40%. Same business, same goals, different focus. And that made all the difference. Now we come to the 18th principle for getting whatever you want: the power of adaptability. In today's world, where everything from technology to trends shifts almost overnight, your ability to adapt isn't just helpful, it's essential. The most valuable skill you can develop in this modern era is the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Because what worked yesterday may not work tomorrow. And the marketplace? It doesn't reward those who cling to the past. It rewards those who are flexible, forward-thinking, and fast to evolve. Adaptability is rewarded. Rigidity, on the other hand, is often punished. Yet most people resist change. They cling to the familiar because it feels safe. Even when the familiar is no longer effective, and in some cases, even harmful, they continue using outdated methods, holding on to old mindsets, and following models that may have worked once but have clearly outlived their usefulness. But the truly successful? They welcome change. They don't fear it, they leverage it. They see change not as a threat, but as an opportunity to grow, to innovate, and to stand out from the crowd. They understand that change, though uncomfortable, is the birthplace of reinvention. That's why I encourage people to ask themselves reflective questions on a regular basis. What assumptions am I making that may no longer be valid? What strategies am I still using that might be outdated? What beliefs am I holding that could be silently limiting my progress? These questions act like mirrors. They help you stay aware, flexible, and mentally agile. They keep you from getting stuck in patterns that no longer serve you, and instead, open the door to new possibilities. I remember working with a company that had used the same marketing approach for years. It had brought them consistent success until the market evolved. Suddenly, their results began to drop. Instead of clinging to what used to work, they chose to pause and reflect. They questioned their assumptions, experimented with bold new strategies, and gradually reinvented their entire marketing playbook. At first, it was hard. There were missteps, learning curves, and plenty of uncertainty. But their willingness to adapt allowed them not just to survive, but to thrive. While their competitors held tight to outdated practices and eventually faded out, this company surged ahead. And now we arrive at the 19th principle for getting whatever you want: the power of patience. In a world driven by speed and instant gratification, patience has become an undervalued, but incredibly powerful virtue. The reality is, meaningful success requires patience. Patience to learn deeply, patience to grow slowly, patience to endure discomfort, patience to trust that results will come, even when they don't show up right away. But most people today don't want to wait. They want fast outcomes, immediate returns. They plant a seed one day and dig it up the next to check if it's growing. They launch a business and expect profits in 30 days. They begin a workout routine and quit after a week because their body hasn't changed. But those who succeed at the highest levels know a deeper truth: worthwhile things take time. They are willing to delay gratification, to keep showing up and putting in the work, day after day, even when there's no obvious reward in sight. They know how to trust the process. I often remind people of the law of the harvest. First comes the planting, then comes the watering, the weeding, and the waiting. And only after all of that comes the harvest. You can't speed it up. You can't harvest something you never planted. And you definitely can't skip the quiet, invisible growth that happens during the waiting. So as you move forward, embrace patience as a strength. Let it ground you when progress feels slow, and let it remind you that all growth takes time. Trust your seeds. Trust the soil. Trust the process. Wishing you health, happiness, and the courage to keep growing, one step at a time. And don't forget to subscribe to Mindset Daily for more powerful lessons like this. See you in the next video.